Hello everyone, thank you to another CPD conference call with the IAPC&M. I'm Dawn Campbell, and today in the hot seat we have Ken Keis. Welcome, Ken.
Well, thank you, Dawn, for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Ken is the CEO of Consulting Resource Group International. He's also a published author of several books, and he's here today to introduce his systems and resources so that we, as a team of accredited practitioners, can learn how best to increase our credibility in the marketplace that has the greatest impact on clients while doubling our income. And we all want more of that. So without further ado, Ken, over to you, please.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and welcome everybody. And if you're listening to this live or recording, I just want to say in the beginning, if there's any questions or things that come up as part of the process, then please reach out, and we're wanting to respond to you as quickly as possible. Now, we have a fair amount of content to cover today, and we want to be able to get to that as quickly as possible. Sorry, my wouldn't you know it, my computer froze, Dawn. So
Okay.
that has not happened before.
Don't worry. We've had it all on these calls.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah,
So I have to end PowerPoint, and I'm going to come right back to it.
Okay, don't worry. We'll talk about amongst ourselves.
I think I have it back.
Okay.
Now I'll go back to share.
That's it.
Do you see that slide now?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. So a little bit better. The computer just decided it was waiting too long for us, Dawn.
Yeah, that's the trouble.
Okay, so I've been in this industry now this is my 30th year. Can you believe that? You were talking before the webinar that it takes a couple of years to ramp up. I'm just encouraging everybody, if you're newer to the industry, just to hang in there. If this is what your calling is, then stick with it. You know, our focus for today is really say, okay, how can we as coaches really accelerate, increase, impact our clients quicker, faster, in spite of all our coaching training that we have? So the question is, you know, what is your purpose as a trusted advisor, somebody serving others? And that is to live your purpose. Now, I'm not here to tell you what it should be, and that's what we do with our clients, is we're helping our clients to get clear about their purpose. But before I get into our specific resources, and thank you again, Dawn and David, for agreeing to partner and work together to be able to help our community. So I want to ask this question, you know, what is the purpose of your business? And the same thing as we do when we serve others or we coach others is really the purpose of our coaching business is really as a fulfillment to our gifts, talents, and abilities, purposes, and passions. Even though some people say it is to make money, yes, it is. But in the end, if I'm not feeling fulfilled by doing it, then why would I do it? Number two is to support your dreams and desires, all those things. So what is it that you really, really want out of your business? So when we talk about purpose, I've written a book. We're going to have a little gift at the end here for a few viewers and people who have participated as a free copy of my book. You have to stay to the end to figure out how to get that. So when we think about a concept, one of the things in coaching is that we bring our own reputation. We bring our experience. We bring our background to the marketplace. But on the other hand, what I want to suggest is, as coaches, as professional developers, can we borrow from other people's reputation? Can we hijack, in a nice way, other people's work so that you can serve your client? The reality is none of us have all the answers. And so that's why people like Gerard have a coaching school to be able to learn his system. That's why we have an association, so you can be accredited and learn from other professionals. So one of the things I want us to consider as professionals is this whole concept of leverage. How do we leverage our time? How do we leverage our intellectual property? How do we leverage our credibility with others? And as well as far as networking, and Don, you were talking about when we first started, prior to going on air, the importance of networking and connecting with all the people around you. Now, the person that you meet might not be somebody you coach, but the person that they know might be somebody that you coach. So one of the things I want you to think about as a coaching business, as a coaching practice, is these 4 elements. And then I'll backdoor into how our tools and resources can support these concepts. First of all, really to know yourself. Are you in the space? It's interesting. Sorry, that was an incomplete sentence, but I speak a lot at career development conferences. And what's really interesting is a lot of people who help others to find their purpose and their career path don't like their career path. So my encouragement is that if you're going to be a coach or advisor or trainer, consultant, that you are in the space that best serves you, not from a self-centered point of view, but from a self-honoring point of view. So know your purpose and yourself so that you can serve others. Number 2 is really asking yourself, what kind of business structure do I want to have? So if I want to be a practitioner that the only thing I do is exchange time for money, meaning I'm going to coach you for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour or 90 minutes, then I'm going to have the exchange for dollars. So I'm not here to tell you what your structure should be, or maybe you want to build a business like Gerard O'Donovan has, where he's leveraged that out and he licenses information to other people. Not everybody wants to do that. I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but you should decide sort of in advance what direction you want to move into, or at least over time clarify that. Number 3, and this is so important, especially in the coaching profession, is how can you implement leverage? An example is this is a leveraged event. So we have a webinar. We're going to record this once, and then it'll be played again for other people to see it. There's more than one person that's on the call. So this is considered a leveraged event. If you do group coaching, that's a leveraged event. If you record or document your information and sell it as a book or a white paper, that's a leveraged event. And then finally, how can I have residual or reoccurring revenue inserted into my coaching model as a concept? It might not be all of your revenue, but what is it that I can do so that I could have reoccurring revenue? Maybe that's a membership site. Maybe there's something that people opt in to get from you as part of it. So here's my story. I got into this industry in the 80s, and success isn't always what you want. This was my business. I had a contract, a 7-figure and 8-figure contract with a Fortune 100 company. I was speaking 200 days a year, traveling, but I also included consulting and coaching. I was earning personally $100,000 a month. Don, that's when $100,000 a month was a lot. And great reviews. But then what happened? Don, is that the contract after 9/11 in North America, the contract the next week was canceled. Now, here's the other side of the reality of that business. And now, here we are, we're on a Zoom call. We have people all around the world. Technology is allowing us to do things that we never could do before. But the reality is, when I was doing this, I was on the road 300 days a year for almost 6 years. So I had 1,500 days away. I had 2 small children. It almost cost me my marriage. And so part of this, I'd never change it, but I would never do it again. So when we think about our coaching business, how can I create long-term sustainability within our model? So the question I have for you, and we ask this of our clients, if nothing changed in your life, your business over the next 5 years, would that be okay? So most people say no. So that means, what is it that we're going to shift? So I use this as an imagery as far as the square wheels. Square wheels represent, how do I think about things right now? So when I ask audiences, when I have this image out there, they might say something like, well, that's difficult. The square wheels are hard. The square wheels are stuck. It's not smooth. And I ask the question, what do the people in the back of the wagon see? And they always respond this. They only see the back of the wagon. So what's in the wagon? That's the round wheels. And so the question is, how far away are the round wheels? Well, the round wheels are right there, but they don't see them because they're not looking at them. And so our job today together is to say, what are some round wheels for you? What are some round wheels for your business? What are some possibilities? But that's also what we do as a coach, because nobody here can cause somebody else to put a round wheel on. All I can do is to help the people at the back of the wagon see the round wheels, and they will choose to put them on or not. And that's the same thing today with you on your coaching business. And hopefully you see some opportunities for round wheels to take your business to the next level. However, here's what most people or most organizations do. Let's just take whatever we're doing and let's just do it harder. Let's just force ourselves through that. I just need to call more people. I just need to coach more people. And so I just want to suggest to us that we need to think about our coaching model, how that works, and what are some possibilities to really increase our credibility instantly with clients as well as our revenue. So one of the things that we do as a company, CRG has now been around. This is our 40th year. It was founded in 1979 by Dr. Terry Anderson. I became VP of Marketing in 1990, and I bought the company 15 years ago. But what Dr. Dwyer always talked about, in self-awareness, all things are possible. So what are we trying to do with our clients, no matter what the context is? If it's health coaching, life coaching, relationship coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, whatever it is, we're trying to create consciousness and awareness that our clients, whatever they are doing, isn't working as well as they'd like, or they're unclear, or maybe they don't know their direction. So basically, in self-awareness, all things are possible. And that is what CRG does with clients and individuals, in my opinion, and humbly say, as well as anybody else in the world. So self-awareness is foundational for your sustainability as well. In other words, my challenge to you is twofold today. What is the direction of your business? What are some things that you can embrace? So our purpose is to help others to live, lead, work, and purpose. So our tools, resources do it. And one of the reasons that we're partnering today is to say, this is the background. So when we talk about credibility, when you have an affiliation with CRG, we've now worked with 50,000 organizations with multiples of millions of clients around the world. We're in 30 countries, 12 languages. We have an 80% switch rate from others. So if you happen to want to, or our tools and resources apply to your clients and or yourself, then you are borrowing from our credibility, our sort of value proposition that we have in the marketplace instantly. So this is where your credibility is going to increase with your clients, is just part of being affiliated with us. Some other sidebar, we were rated one of the top 3 providers of leadership development by Lead 500 just a few years ago. We haven't applied for the award recently, but we beat out companies like Disney and Kenneth Blanchard, as well as our professional mastery, where we certify other coaches and trainers on our tools, was ranked one of the top 10 in the world through Leadership Excellence Awards. And 2 years ago, we won the #1 service provider in our local community. So when we think about the power of tools, the powers of tools to serve others, is we believe in benchmarking. We believe, can we provide clients with an expedited, quick, fast, simple, user-friendly way to learn about themselves so that they then can make intentional and deliberate decisions. And this comes from consciousness. So example, the reason I have the image of the doctor there is if you went to your doctor and you sat across from your doctor and says, well, I'm not feeling that well, I'm a little dizzy sometimes. And the doctor looks at you and says, you know what, Don, I think your blood pressure is high. I think your blood pressure is like 180 over 120 or something like that, but I'm not going to put the blood pressure cuff around your arm. You would never accept that from the doctor, that they would just guess what your ratings are. Or it says, well, listen, we're going to measure your cholesterol, but I'm just going to guess that your blood cholesterol is this. We would never do that in the medical profession. So my encouragement is if we wouldn't accept that in the medical profession, why would we accept that in professional coaching? So a lot of times, and by the way, I agree with just about every coaching methodology out there. They're all great, but it's the combination of the different methodologies that help us to be effective with others. So if I use narrative, one of the things that CRG is the master of, and we'll show you this by the end of the call, is that we have tools and resources that can expedite, help people get grounded, that benchmark their condition. So our tools don't create results. They help to tell you, the coach, and your participant, your individual, the person you're serving, where they are at. So when we think about development, one of the things that CRG does, and this is somewhat unique to us, is that we have assessments and tools that develop the whole person, not just a single factor. So I'll come back to what all these different areas are. But when we think about the world now, and we're on a global call, we have people from all around the world, and that's part of our associations where we have people all around the world that are now doing this coaching, and it's accelerating. Is interesting enough, many of you have seen this research before. Gallup's largest survey in history just a couple of years ago said, what percentage of the global workforce are engaged? And so, Dawn, do you remember what the research showed us on that number? Do you recall what it was?
No, I don't.
It was only 13%.
Wow.
So 87% of the global workforce don't like what they do. US and Canada were the highest at 29%. But look at China, 6%. And by the way, China's 6%, that is up from 2%. And then you even have countries like the Netherlands at 7%. So you can go, it's 142 countries. You can look at that. The other one is there's a quarter of the population who are actively disengaged, meaning they're sabotaging at work. Well, there's no way we're going to realize our potential if that happens. Now, this is one of my colleagues, Brendan Bouchard. He just came up with this book. He researched the habits of high performers. And it was interesting. One of the number one habits of high performers was clarity. And so if I don't know who I am, if I don't know where I'm going, then how can I get there? So with CRG, we have 12 different assessments, technically 11, the 12th is a combination of them, where now I can look at these different areas at different times. People do not have to be certified to use them, though we have a certification course that is possible for people to do it. So you can access these anytime, anywhere. And this is where we're partnering with Dawn and David in the association to really serve individuals out there. So we have now spent 40 years, millions of dollars of creating all these tools online to access them independently. So I'm just going to quickly go through what do we have there. There's the personal style. That would be a replacement to DISC or Myers-Briggs or True Colors or some of the other personality assessments that are out there. And we have about an 80% switch rate once people understand the differences in the learner-friendly design, as well as our design has 21 different patterns where many of the other sort of standard assessments out there have 16. Those additional 5 patterns represent over 30% of the population who are not acknowledged in other tools. Sales, entrepreneurship. So even yourself, I would encourage you that you would consider the entrepreneurial style for yourself. What's your entrepreneurial style? But also, we have research of 4,000 successful entrepreneurs, and how do you compare to their thinking? The job style, manager's job style, and job style compatibility are all about positions or jobs. So when we talk about job fit and how we're measuring the position, and so then we say the nature of work needs to match the nature of the person so I can sustain my engagement. I won't go into that now, but that's another one there. Self-worth levels, my confidence levels, the online stress indicator in the center of the page. So I have a diploma in nutrition and genetics. We have a 120 question survey or assessment on 5 different stress levels. Right now, the wellness levels of the developed world and developing world are quickly declining based on our lifestyles and just all the processed foods and everything. Don't get me going about that. So even if a person knows their purpose and they're sick and they're ill and they don't have energy, then we take care of that. Values, the new research on values clarification reduces stress levels, and this is behavioral values. So these are motivators. So if a client goes through this assessment, they make 300 decisions in about 25 minutes. We'd never be able to do that in a narrative format. So we have this matrix where we force them to kind of choose priorities over one another. And all of a sudden it's revealing to them. And sometimes what they guess their values are versus going through the process is totally different. And we believe in learning styles and instructional styles. So if you're a teacher, maybe you want to take, or you're a coach or a trainer or a speaker, you want to take the instructional style, the learning style for students. And then we have a leadership skills, which is a competency model. So if you're working with leaders, so one of your former board members, Betsy K. Burr, uses the leadership skills self with every one of her clients that she's coaching from a leadership point of view, benchmarks that, and then they coach to those skills. And then finally, we have a 360 version of that process. So that is a comprehensive set of tools that are available to you that have been fine-tuned and developed over 40 years. And they also, one of the other things that's important, they work together as a family. And we use other tools in our own organization, but they're congruent. So you're not going to have conflicting models, language, terminology, mindsets, philosophies within these tools. They're going to work together as a family to serve you. So when we think about developing the whole person, our personality model, our proprietary model here is, it's not just about personality. In our definition is the totality of who you are. Personal styles would be like DISC or Myers-Briggs, but all these other factors contribute to my personhood. So it's not one single item, it's all of these things. So if it's personal style, biophysical, if you didn't get any sleep last night, or if it's late, or if you got the flu, then it's going to affect me, my confidence levels, environmental systems. So again, my geography, where I grew up, the background, all the things that are going on as far as workplace. So if I grow up, as a 13-year-old in the middle of Afghanistan versus LA versus London, might see life differently. Social teachers, what's the input that's really driving me? And emotional anchors, what are the events in my life that create triggers? Many of us coach this and work with individuals because people have triggers that are negative triggers that are hindering their ability in life. So that's another area. And then the whole person. Now in behind that, we have the word spirituality. And what we mean by that is people's belief systems highly influence what they do or what they don't do. So one of the things that we believe is that we, as a company, is that we want to help individuals, yourself included, to play to your strengths, and that developing your weaknesses is highly overrated. And here's what I mean by this. It doesn't mean that, if you're a driven, direct individual, that being rude and obnoxious is okay. What I'm saying is that then I need to be in a role and a responsibility where I can live that out for the majority of my life. As far as my role, my responsibility, is it fulfilling me on how I am wired? So that predisposition, meaning I'm born this way, can I honor that? Can we help our clients know it? And our bias is this, and this is one of my books, Why Aren't You More Like Me, is that every single person on the planet has a personal style. So sidebar here, when we've done coaching, now I've done 10,000 hours of coaching and consulting, so the combination of both, which then fits into our mentoring model, is I have never coached an individual in the last 25 years without them completing our personality or personal style assessment. And the reason for that is I want them to quickly know who they are, and then it helps me on how I'm going to coach them, but then that's going to affect how they're going to interact with everything, their work, their relationships, their choices, their career. All of these things are affected. And our belief is every single person on the planet has personal style. There's some research done by TalentSmart, and it said that what percentage of people would be successful without knowing their personal style? And they said it was 2%. So how important is it? That means 98% of our clients cannot realize their potential unless they know who they are. So I'm just going to quickly go through a set of slides here. I've sort of covered already. So the personal style is covered by the personal style indicator or the sales or the entrepreneurial. The biophysical area is covered by our stress indicator. The self-worth is covered by our confidence or self-worth indicator. The environmental systems is through the entrepreneurial style success. If we think about social teachers, that's our values. If we think about emotional anchors, just my encouragement is that's not something we go to a lot. Learning style, instructional style, and all of these support us. Now, when we think about success in life, and why are tools like this so important if we're working and coaching? Because every single person listening and watching this webinar is coaching people. We're not coaching items. We're not coaching our computer. And so when we ask the question, what are the top 2 reasons why leaders fail? Just think about that for a moment. So if leaders are failing, what's the research show? And here's what the research reveals. A lack of emotional intelligence or interpersonal skills. What's the number one thing we want to do as a coach? We want to help them to be aware, conscious. I was one of only 50 people invited to work with Marshall Goldsmith in New York for a full day event. And we were just talking about his stakeholder feedback model. I know that you guys have partnership with him now too as well. Great process is that we want to be aware and awake of what we're doing. So our emotional intelligence, our awareness of our impact, interpersonal skills. Well, how am I going to be conscious? I need to know what my personal style is. I need to know what my core values, which drive my choices are. Do I know the values of the people that I work with, that I am trying to build relationships with? And number two, I remember being called in to work with Ford in a large project. The vice president had invited me to come in and do a full day workshop on this content. But interesting enough, he was the only person who didn't attend the session. So a lot of times when we're coaching leaders, this pride or hubris gets in the way, meaning I don't need that training, I don't need that coaching. And we all know that all of us need it. I was actually just working with my coach yesterday personally, and I'll just tell my story about how I got into this a little bit later. And then when we think about the 3 reasons that leaders succeed, self-awareness, number 1. I have a podcast, I'll make reference to it a little bit later, but I've now done 125 episodes. The number 1 concept that every person that has been successful talks about on the show is the importance of self-awareness. If I don't know who I am, then what can I do? Now, number 2 is something else that our tools will help you as a coach to help your clients and or yourself, is emotional mastery or self-management. Okay, so number 1, I know who I am. Number 2 is I need to manage who I am. So my style and who I am is not an excuse for my behavior. How can I be conscious, awake, aware in any given moment about how the impact my behavior is having in the marketplace, in the relationships, in the environment that I'm in? And then number 3 is if I'm going to be a leader, if I'm going to work with others, if I'm going to be successful, do I have a deep understanding of others? And that's, again, one of the things that our tools does as well as anybody. Now, this was a survey done in Canada. And they said, what percentage of individuals think their supervisor or leader is incompetent? Now, Dawn, I know you're listening. Do you want to do a guess for me?
I would say it was at least 98%.
Okay, 98. Well, that might be France, but it was 70%. Okay. So we have nearly 3/4 of the individuals out there who really, if I asked the leaders, I said, how many of you think that you're not doing a very good job? I'm sure I wouldn't get 3/4 of them saying, I don't know what I'm doing. So is there a need for coaching in this space? Absolutely. So then we have a whole system of assessments and a book that supports the 60 skills that we cover. We also have, this is just a sample of our 360 report where I will get my information as well as the feedback from others or peers that I'm working with. This book now, when we talk about deliberate leadership, one of my partners, Dr. Mitch Davidi, who is the co-author of this book with me, this content, which is our personal style model, is now one of the core curriculum pieces for law enforcement training in the US. 60,000 officers have now gone through it. So we also have this area where we talk about manager's job style. Now, this is, again, a little bit unique for us. And that is you are measuring, or maybe you're working with a client. And I'll come into this concept of leverage of the tools here in a moment. This is where an employer will fill out the nature requirements or the style requirements of a position. And then you rank the position. So this is not done on a person. This is done on a position. And now you can have multiple people fill this out, and you're starting to get some understanding of, and here's what happens. I have 3 people who are in a hiring committee, and then those 3 people don't agree with the nature of the position. Then how am I going to hire the right person? So then this becomes a conversational and coaching tool. When you're working with decision makers who are trying to hire the right person, they do all the other things around experience, etc. But now this tool adds another dynamic to it where they can confirm what they believe the style requirements of the position are. Most people are not measuring. In fact, our reality is that's why 87% of the people don't like what they do, is because they're not engaged, they're not connected, their purpose, their style is not matching the position. And then we have a compatibility report that says, let's take the applicants and then have them finish a style tool, compare that to this other tool, and then we have a gradient report where we said, here are six applicants. These two are a fit for the position from a style perspective. These other ones less so. So I won't go into the details of it. I just wanted to give you a global perspective of what's possible and how some of these things could be used to be able to serve, support you and or your clients. Now, when we think about assessments, and first of all, let me just say this, assessments aren't the end all and be all. So assessments, once a person completes it, in our opinion, that's the beginning. However, if we're going to increase our credibility with individual, what does it mean if I give a client an assessment that has quality, consistency, represents a high-level brand for you, and all of a sudden you're sharing this tool, this experience with them? We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the online system. I'll show a couple of pages of that in a moment. And so all of a sudden you can expedite it. If they go and, let's say, complete the values preference indicator, you have leveraged your time by your client going off the grid, taking 20 to 30 minutes to complete this. You didn't have to interview them. My opinion on that, after working on this for 30 years, is I'd no way I'd ever be able to, in a narrative or a conversation, to validate or verify those core values at the same level or quality or experience as, let's say, our values preference indicator. It also, because our tools are development tools, not tests, and this is important, they are actually designed for the coaching process specifically, meaning I want to equip my client to have independence or interdependence, not codependence. There's some other assessments out there that unless you debrief the answers with them, they don't even know what it means. Well, how can they act on information? How can they be intentional? How can they be deliberate if they don't even know what the report means? And so this is where it's user-friendly, it's easy. And by the way, at the end of this webinar, we're going to give you a link so that you can complete a complimentary assessment. You can thank Don and David. They're great negotiators. It says, what can you give to the members so that they can experience this? You're going to be able to complete a couple of assessments free from us to get your own experience, develop yourself. The other one is that it creates a common language. Now, here's another leverage point for you to consider. You're working one-on-one with a client. Coaching itself doesn't have a lot of leverage because it's time for money if I'm working with an individual one-on-one in that model. But what if you're working with a decision maker, and that decision maker has transformational events, experiences with you as a coach when you use one of our assessments? Let's say it's the values, let's say it's the personality, let's say it's the wellness. And they have a team that they are responsible for. And then what we teach is the best use to be able to have that client be successful is for them to know their entire team. So now, without you having to coach all the other ones, all the other individuals on the team, 10, 12, 20, 100, could take that tool, which you make a margin on if you want to be a partner with us, and now all of a sudden you've leveraged your time where this information, this intellectual property can be downstream to serve your clients there. So part of your model, your thinking is, how can I have events and sales and revenue, which still serves the client, where my presence is not needed, or it's not just this time for money. So that's where those tools can come in. And when you think about our digital dashboard, I'm not going to get in the details here for sure, but you can private label, put your information on the top. This is one of our larger clients. It's the largest seminar company in the US. And so then they can access those tools. Then you have a listing of all the assessments there, and you can deploy them. And so you can send to your clients a link, they can complete it. And as part of this, you get to decide at the deployment of the assessment who gets to see the results. So I can see the results as the coach only. The participant can only see the results, or both of you. And then we store that online for you forever. So if you forget where the tool is, you can forward it, you can print it, you can interact with it. You can control it, say, well, listen, I'm only going to see it, and then you send the report just before your coaching call and you coach them through it. Because here's our belief, is that the assessment itself is the beginning, not the end. And as a coach, as a trusted advisor, as a consultant, as a professional, you are now adding value to the experience. You're adding questions, you're adding narrative. You're now having them interact with the report and make sure there's accountability that they actually do something with it. So you can deploy, we track it on where everything is. We have many foreign languages that are online. Our system is multi-language capable. We have every single tool in Chinese, and then we have some other tools in different languages. And then I know we don't have Romanian, I'm sorry, but we are always open to partners who want to translate any of our tools, and we can do partnerships there. I just mentioned that if you happen to be interested in it. So again, open to any kind of partnering with anybody who wants to translate the tools. I know that Gerard has done that with different people in different parts of the world as well with some of his work. So we're just open to that. We also will private label the tools. So if you want to put your logo right on the report, they'll know that this report came from your coaching company. So that's, again, part of our model. I actually, Dawn, grew up on a dairy farm. And so I really believe in the community kind of aspect. It's not about too much competition. It's really how can we spend extra money to be able to program our system to be able to add your logo, your identifiers on the reports so that you really are seen as a provider of this tool in partnership with us. By the way, a couple more things and then I think I've got about 5 minutes more, Dawn. Does that work?
Yep, that's fine.
We have now finished 5 years of reprogramming everything. So all our tools are responsive design. So somebody can go on their phone and complete the tool. This is what our personal style indicator looks like on a screen capture on an iPhone or Google phone, whatever the case might be. If you want to take it on your iPad, you want to take it on your computer. So the mobile world is there. They can access all their information. So it's all available for you. You'll notice in the very bottom where I have the red circle that says both you and the facilitator, Adrian, will be able to have access to the assessment and data. So you have to have those privacy notices based on all the things that are available. So one of our philosophies as a company is we give psychology away to the learner. It's something we do with our clients, not to our clients, so that they are equipped. And it's so exciting when they start to put the round wheels on and use the tools or resources to do it. Now, we have supportive documents. We can get some links to you. This is being recorded, but we have a white paper about how our tool is different. Our personal style indicator is different and why we created it, and it's multi-theory based. It's different than the others. I also have this as a 15-minute YouTube where I go through the white paper and explain that for you. So we have those resources that are available there for you as part of it. The other one is that a lot of our content I have on our podcast, and I've done some solo shows where I've talked about the tools, talked about the transformation of values or purpose or leadership. And so you can go to any of these platforms, listen to them. And we haven't had we haven't uploaded all our episodes to CRI, pardon me. So that's something that's pending, but iTunes and SoundCloud have them all posted. We have a trusted advisor or coach program if you're interested, so that's available. And then we have a professional mastery, meaning here's something that we talk about. Our ability to serve others is equal to or less than our own development. You know, why are we having this professional development webinar right now? To really expand your ideas, to develop yourself. In our 3-day transformational program that we host for professionals like yourself, it's interesting. We have a part where we have people receive and give feedback. And it's interesting, a lot of coaches are very uncomfortable receiving feedback, compliments and or negative feedback. And I said, well, how can we actually be coaches, help with feedback, mentoring, if I'm not comfortable with that space itself? So that's something that's there. Then we have all kinds of checklists and work lists that we support people with on it. So there's really a summary of the tools and resources. We want to make sure that we develop the whole person. So this is a system that works together, and it depends. You might not use all the tools, but you might have 2 or 3 that fit you. So if you're a health coach, you'd certainly use the wellness assessment. maybe the values, maybe the personality. If you're a leadership coach, you might use that. If you're working with kids, you might work the self-worth. All those things are possible. We believe that these kinds of resources are the short route. They accelerate everything. They help you to get somewhere very, very quickly. So in 10 to 12 minutes, you can have the personal style of that person, which you would take hours in some kind of narrative or conversation, and they would never have the same level of understanding. Plus the in-depth report, in many cases, reveal to them things that they haven't even considered. So we think about the Johari window and the blind side. We help with that as well. And just recently, I was at a situation where we partnered with a new organization. They do coaching in North America for the trades. We went in and did a leadership retreat with them, and right away, their credibility as an organization, they had sort of a wine and cheese afterwards, about 100 people there. One after another came to me, says, man, your tool is so awesome. It's so so excellent. And thank you for connecting with BTA. BTA stands for, something Academy. My apologies. My brain just had a brain fog right at the moment there. But immediately, these things that are on this list came to light with this group. And by the way, this group is one of the best, fastest growing coaching, mentoring, online training for the trades in North America right now. And they're doing multiple 7 figures in business in just 3 years. It's just amazing young guys who have started this company as partners. But that is what's possible when you start kind of expanding and looking at tools and resources. And then it leverages your time, all those things, plus connecting with like-minded people as well. So hopefully, Dawn, I didn't speak too slow for you. But I mean, I've now been around CRG for a long, long time. I was the vice president of marketing, but then I left to have my successful consulting company, which had that large contract. We used the CRG tools in the solutions that we were deploying, which was coaching, which was training, which was HR, all of the above, consulting. And they were always the #1 rated experiences by the participants. So I liked the company so much that I came back and bought it. So that's kind of the story there. I mean, my own story is, and just the importance of a coach. I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm the 3rd generation firstborn male from Eastern European descent. My parents came from Hungary. And when I decided to leave the farm, I mean, I was called a traitor. So, and my English teacher said that I would never amount to anything because I'm dyslexic. So if I can do this, and no way I'd ever think that I would be the author of all these tools or co-author of these books. I said, wow, my encouragement to the coaches listening to this is that you do make a difference. And the tipping point for me was in 1988. I live in Vancouver, Canada, and Seattle's about a 2.5 hour drive south of us. I drove down once or twice a month for 6 or 7 months to see a coach. And that coach helped me to get clear about what my life purpose was. I knew I was supposed to communicate and encourage others, but it was foggy. It wasn't clear. Clarity, as I showed you in the very beginning, is very, very important. And he helped me to get there. And that has changed my entire life. So, even from a profession point of view, I've experienced the benefits on the other side being a participant. And so there's just you can't discount how important this work is right now in the world, because there's so much confusion. There's so much information. People are overwhelmed. And how can we help them go to the next level? And that's where we come in to be able to help you with all this work over time. You don't have to do it. It's right there tomorrow, instantly. And then, you do your purpose. Where do you want to coach with who? That's your choice. Well, on that note, Dawn, I will stop and take any kind of questions that you want, and maybe I'll turn the camera on.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, we can all turn our cameras on and unmute ourselves. So thank you, Ken. I mean, I'm convinced you're after world domination myself, that the speed and energy and the dynamism you've got of all the things that you want to achieve. I mean, you've just shown us very, very quickly how we can increase credibility and have that positive impact on our clients while doubling our money, whether it's through an affiliate or creating that leverage with our clients, particularly executive and corporate coaches. You know, as you say, you can go in and be working with one manager level, and then suddenly it cascades throughout the company, and you're creating this passive income stream all the time, by using tools that are actually empowering the clients.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, because it's brand new for us, we are now in the beginning stages of launching online courses for every bit of our content. And our first course is launching. So depending on when you watch this, because this is going to be archived, but it's going to be launching on November the 5th, 2018. So in 5 days time from when this is being recorded, we're going to have this online course. The first course is Why Aren't You More Like Me on my book. And that can be remarketed by any of our partners. And then we can be the experts. You can earn the passive income. You can develop them. And then you could build coaching out of that training on both sides of it. And it can be leveraged into large organizations where we'll have entire schools, organizations embrace that stuff.
Fantastic. So lots and lots of joint venture opportunities there for all of us. So let's open the floor then to questions. And I think rather than just leave it blank, I think that, and then people will end up talking over each other, I'll just read out a couple of names who are flagging either that they've got a question. We'll start alphabetically. Initially,
now, Dawn, before you, sorry to interrupt, I want to make sure that everybody you stay, because we have our gift at the end of this Q&A, so that you're going to get your free assessments, and I'm going to show you how to do that at the end of the show.
Okay, great. Well, I'll let Anushli go first, because I know in Sri Lanka it's coming close to midnight. So Anushli, do you have any questions that you would like to pose to Ken, please? I know we have a slight time today because Anushli is in Sri Lanka, so just bear with us. Okay. I don't know if she can't unmute. Anybody else? I think I'm just trying to avoid everyone talking over everybody, but it's such a long list. It's probably just easier to say, if you've got a question, just shout out. So unmute yourself and ask Ken your questions, please.
There must be some questions.
You've stunned them all, Ken.
Now, David, this is the first time you've seen this. What are your thoughts as a coach? And maybe you can get the question and answers started for the group.
Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of, very impressed, very interested with everything that you've been saying throughout the webinar. So I would echo Dawn's comments about, just saying, thank you very much, and thank you very much for partnering with us. I think one of the questions that is often asked, and I've certainly come across it and would appreciate your views, is when you have a client who is reluctant to complete any form of assessment, how would you tackle that?
Well, we have to ask the question, why are they reluctant? And so reluctance comes out of some kind of fear. So what is that fear? Sometimes they've had a very negative experience. Example, many years ago, Fortune 500 company asked me to come in and do Leadership 360 with the leadership team. They refused. The reason they refused, David, is that it was going to be used for punitive measures, meaning if you didn't get a high enough rating, you're going to be fired as a leader. Well, who's going to fill that out? The other one is, a lot of times people really hate the word tests. And so when we say, listen, these are communication tools, they're assessments, you can't fail it, it's not right, it's not wrong. Now, admittedly, in the wellness assessment, you can have very high stress. Well, this is good to know. And if I have very high stress, maybe I need to take care of some low-hanging fruit. So I just help to understand their fears. And then from there, it is not right or wrong. It is answers that they are giving. So our tools don't create the results, they reveal what is already true. So somebody says, well, I'm not like that. I remember somebody arguing with their results, Dawn and David, with one time on our personal style indicator. When I talked to everybody around this person, they said, no, she's like that, but she was not self-aware that she showed up that way at work. And that's why there was such a negative experience with her. So sometimes that happens, David. I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, but we really want to set them at ease. Now, the other side is on personality side, I've seen a lot of pigeonholing. That's where they feel trapped by something like an MBTI or something like that. We don't do that. We actually allow people up to 3 different profiles in our personal style indicator. Nobody else does that for the purposes of flexibility and complexity.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. You mentioned earlier on, so like in the webinar, and you've mentioned it again there, the comparison with your products sort of, and as an alternative to things like like MBTI, which I think so like quite a lot of people will be familiar with. Whereabouts can people find that information to to be able to understand what the differences are?
Right. We have that was pretty noisy in the background there. Yeah. We have a white paper, and we also have the YouTube. So if people want that white paper, we can make that available as a download. It's a free PDF, and we go through the details of that. Ours is multi-theory based. So MBTI is based on Carl Jung's work. Most DISC work is based on Marston's work. Wilson Learning Social Style, Merrill Reed's work. So those are singular theories. We really put together our own theory, looking at all the different items out there. And because we were teaching psychology courses, we wanted something that better served the students, that honored the diversity. So we have things like triple high profiles, which are 3 balanced. And then we also have ones that are 4 even. Well, many of the other tools don't have that. So I mentioned to you, David, that we have 21 patterns or profiles, and most of those mainstream ones have 16. So that difference is really honoring the person. The other one is less than 10% of the population, if people are using like a 4-dimension model, are what we call 1 dimension or dominant in one area. So most of us are blends of the different dimensions. Well, that needs to be honored. And that's why some people actually push back on filling out another personality assessment, because they've never really been truly acknowledged in their pattern and combination as our tool will do for them.
And one other question before, because I could ask questions on this for the remainder of the evening, but I'm mindful that I can't do that. One of the other questions that often comes up, is the support that's available, so that if a coach is working with a specific type of profile and they have either difficulty interpreting it, or they have difficulty with the client, what sort of support mechanism is available through CRG to help them get through issues like that?
Well, we have an office that's just outside of Vancouver. Now, our hours are North American, but you can always email me specifically, or Eleanor, who's been at the company now for 30 years. And if we really get outside of the box, I can go to Dr. Anderson, who founded the company, as well. And then we also have my book, Wired to More Like Me, or Deliberate Leadership, which goes in depth, and you can get an e-version of that easy enough these days. And so that's something that they can get as well. And then if it's really an issue, then we'll show up personally on the phone or Skype or something like that and help you. I mean, we really want to make sure that the experience is positive. At this point, we're able to respond that way. The other one is that we do develop other experts around the world, and some of those experts, we can refer you to them as well.
That's great, thank you. I'm going to stop asking questions now, because so I'm sure somebody has another question.
Is there a chat box, Dawn, that a couple people can use if it's too noisy in their background?
Yes, we had somebody new join the call, and they weren't muted, so apologies for that. So if anybody would like to unmute themselves now, this is your last opportunity in the last 2 or 3 minutes while we've got Ken's time and attention to ask your questions. I have to say, Ken, while people are unmuting themselves and thinking about it, is I love that coaching question. If nothing changes in the next 5 years, is that okay? Probably not. So what a great way to start. Okay.
Well, if we think about it, we ask that of other clients, but do we ask ourselves that as coaches, as experts?
Anushli has just written to you to say, amazing work, Ken, thank you. Not going to ask any questions, too noisy here. Can you be reached later for my questions? And I know the answer is yes, and I will supply the details with the recording, with Ken's PowerPoint presentation, and details of his offers. Ruth has written lots of information to process. No questions at the moment, but thank you for such a great webinar. Lou says, I think the tools are great as a springboard to a conversation before a coaching session, allows the client to have explored a certain area. I'd welcome the opportunity to see the content in more detail with you, Ken. The application for me is students and individuals in the process of change, so not business. Unsure if this is a good fit.
Absolutely. We used it for my kids' grade 8 class out here. So they were 14-year-olds. Now we say the read level is really grade 7, 8, or 9, North American style. So I'm using it with grade 10s out here. We love it with students. We actually have universities and high schools around the world using the tools to help kids. And if you think about it, that's the space for it. So it is very user-friendly.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely. In fact, my friend's 11-year-old went through the book and was going through it and says, he said, thanks, Dr. Keis, for giving Mom the book. And I said, why is that? He says, well, she's much nicer now.
Okay.
That's 11-year-old. And so the 11-year-old knew who she was.
All right. Lou's also written that her brain is buzzing with the opportunities, and thank you for your time and sharing your expertise in developing this. Brendan is a real hero of mine, and I'm on his coaching programs and love it. So you've got a common contact there. Great to have that response about the question. Thank you. And it is actually because we have probably at least half a dozen educators that I know about in the membership. One is writing a book on youth coaching, so I will make sure that she gets a copy of this to know about the tools, and the rest are actually in schools, coaching children, coaching the parents, and coaching the teachers. I mean, for me personally, I work with people thinking about, so when they graduate as a coach or a mentor, thinking about setting up their business and mentoring and coaching them through that first year or so. So even taking the online entrepreneurial style and success indicator will help them work out their purpose and are they actually in the right field. So I see that as very useful for me. Thank you. So if nobody, oh, sorry, one more. John has saying, a very interesting webinar, thank you. Need to think about the fit for my own business model. May need to come back to you with questions later. So yes, obviously there are people who are a little bit shy and obviously conscious of background noise, and so being very respectful, and they're going to write to you, Ken, so you're going to get lots of questions afterwards, I think.
Well, so, let me, before we go, I will now bring up the screen of, so again, we really want to honor developing the whole person. That is our philosophy. That's at our heart. No single assessment or tool is inclusive of everything. So that's why we have so many tools and directions and coaching and everything. It is the short route, but I want to show the screen of, if you go to this link, you will be able to get your complimentary assessments. We finished that landing page this morning at 9 a.m. So thank you for a deadline. So when they go there, you'll be able to opt in and get your free assessments. And so some of you within the next few minutes will have completed the personal style. We basically assign the personal style indicator and our values assessment, which are two different kinds of assessments for you to experience them. And the other one, that question that came up, Don, is every one of our tools, we have sample reports online. So that's available, that we can get that to you so you can see the content of all the tools as well. Great.
Thank you very much. Well, before we wrap up, I would just like to hand over to David, who I know wants to say a little something about our solution partnership philosophy and why we've partnered with CRG in particular. But I will just say, before handing over to David, thank you very much, Ken. Inspirational as always. Love the energy, and I look forward to working with you for the benefit of everybody. So
thank you, Don. Thank you.
David.
Yes. Firstly, so like I'm pleased that everybody can hear me, and thank you very much, everybody who has joined the webinar, and for everybody who's listening to it on the recorded option. My Zoom has just crashed, so I'm looking at a blank screen at the minute. So I'm generally sort of like winging it. But the philosophy that we have with solutions partners is really simple. Number one, the people that we partner with have to have a very similar philosophy and value set, in so much as not just about helping our members, but helping the people that our members work with. So, you know, members of the public, organizations, be that from a life coaching perspective or an executive coaching perspective, leadership development, training people to become coaches, to become mentors, and so on and so forth. The other aspect that we look for as well is that it's very much a partnership. So we want to work together, we want to discuss new ideas, new concepts, and where at all possible, if new things are coming out, we want to work together on that, again, for the benefit not just of our members, but for all of those that we work with. And we look very much forward to an ongoing and active relationship with CRG, and specifically with Ken. I'm sure that he will get to a point of wondering why he engaged with the IAPC&M with the amount of questions and information that he's going to be asked. But I'm sure that there is a great deal of information that we can all learn from Ken and his organization, and I would encourage everybody to reach out and find out what you can do.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
So I think that's it. We're bang on time. We can wrap up, and you can get on with your day over there in Canada, Ken. And the likes of Anushli, who's nearly midnight, can go to bed. And everybody else across the world, thank you very much for your interest and your support, both of the IAPC&M and of CRG. Thank you. And the recording and the PowerPoint presentation will also be available for you if you want that as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.